Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm looking forward to meet the EU defense ministers. The topic of this breakfast will be critical undersea infrastructure. We saw the incident last month in the Baltic Sea, where a gas pipeline and internet cables were damaged, and that has reminded us of the vulnerability, but also the importance of this type of infrastructure. And NATO has been addressing these threats for many years, but after the incident or the damage first against the Nord Stream pipelines and now also the Baltic Connector, we have significantly stepped up with more naval patrols, with more naval aircraft, patrol aircraft, and also with drones to increase our presence in the Baltic and the North Sea. We have also established, or we're in the process of establishing, a new center at our Maritime Command in the United Kingdom to better coordinate efforts of allies, to work with partners, to work with the European Union, but also to work with the private sector to better share information and to ramp up what we do to protect critical undersea infrastructure. And earlier this year, NATO established a task force together with the European Commission on resilience, including critical undersea infrastructure. The task force has delivered its reports, and now we are working on the implementation and the follow-up of those recommendations. So critical infrastructure is important, and it's an area where we once again see the relevance and importance of cooperation between the NATO and the European Union. Then I expect that in the meeting we will also address the situation in Ukraine. Intense fighting continues. The situation on the battlefield is difficult, and that just makes it even more important that we sustain and step up our support for Ukraine, because we cannot allow President Putin to win. Ukraine must prevail as a sovereign, independent nation in Europe, and it's in our interest to support Ukraine.
Secretary General, rumor has it that some of Ukraine's allies, partners, would like them to start talking to the Russians. Do you think that Ukraine should seek negotiations with the Kremlin?
It's for Ukraine to decide on what are acceptable conditions for negotiations, and even more important, what are acceptable conditions for any agreement. The responsibility of NATO allies is to support Ukraine to defend itself, because this is also in our interest to show that we are standing up for the rule of law, international law, and that we are helping Ukraine to fight back against a war of aggression. Wars are unpredictable. No one can say how and when this war ends. What we can say is that the likelihood for an acceptable negotiated outcome increases the more military support we provide to Ukraine. Because so far we have seen no real will from President Putin to negotiate an acceptable solution for Ukraine. So the only way to get there is to convince President Putin that he will not win on the battlefield, and the only way to get to achieve that is by strengthening the military capacity of Ukraine by providing support. So if we want a negotiated solution, the way to reach that, to get there, is military support to Ukraine.
Secretary General. Thank you. So while the EU countries are still trying to figure out how to reach the 1 billion target that they promised for March 2024, Russia is actually being delivered enough ammunition from North Korea immediately. What does it mean for the situation on the ground? What does it mean for Ukraine?
Well, NATO allies are stepping up also when it comes to production. This is something we started to address last summer, and allies from the United States, United Kingdom, but also European, the EU allies, Germany and many others are now increasing production. I just visited Germany over the weekend, and I'm encouraged by the messages that they are producing more, but also investing in increased production capacity. And of course, the biggest ally is the United States, which has already made big investments in increased capacity. What we are doing from the NATO side is that we are working with the industry. We had the NATO Industry Forum last month in Stockholm. We are also joining forces among NATO allies. We have something called joint procurement, which is organized by the NATO Support and Procurement Agency. They have already in place what we call framework contracts for 2.4 billion, and out of them 1 billion already in firm contracts. So NATO allies are delivering support, are ramping up production in many different ways, but we push this also from the NATO side. And during my visit to Germany this weekend, they announced significant increased support to Ukraine, so it shows that allies are actually stepping up. Then take one question there, and then it's over. You behind? Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Secretary General, from when did you hear first the name Roman Chervinsky, and from whom?
Which name?
It's a Ukrainian intelligence officer who could be involved in the Nord Stream attack, Roman Chervinsky. When did you hear first the name?
Well, there are ongoing investigations, national investigations, and I will not comment on them.
Secretary General, how do you estimate intention of Russia to relocate, to remove Navy bases to occupied Abkhazia, and also, one our citizen was killed on occupied territory, another was abducted. So how do you estimate situation?
So we strongly support territorial integrity and sovereignty of Georgia, and of course we don't accept that these breakaway territories can be used by Russia to establish military bases. This just once again violates the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Georgia, and it demonstrates how far Russia is willing to go to achieve their military goals in Ukraine, but also that actually they have been pushed on the defensive. The Ukrainians have on the defensive because the Ukrainians have actually been successful in attacking naval facilities in Crimea, and therefore Russia is looking into alternatives, demonstrating actually the achievements that the Ukrainians have made in attacking Russian Navy. Thank you so much. Thank you.